Howdy, welcome back to another prediction video. So, without further ado, let's just jump right on into it because you already know what's up. So, 1590 is now currently the main locomotive for the Winnipesaukee Scenic, so I have no reason to doubt that it will be the same in 2026. It is about time for a Mass Bay excursion, so I think it'll be on that, but yeah, other than that, it's going to be the same as this year. Maybe an occasional breakdown or two, but other than that, it's just going to do Winnipesaukee Scenic, probably the fall foliage with 302, more on that later, and the Christmas train. That's quite literally about it. Just basically the same as it's been for the last 2 years. So, moving on. 1012. 1012 is same as 1590, except it's for the Granite State Scenic. It will do all of its excursions, turkey trains, the Lincoln locals, and all that stuff. Yeah, it won't be anything particularly different. Again, maybe it'll be on the Mass Bay excursion, but the only one I'm fairly confident on is 1590, and that's even if the excursion happens this year. But next up is 105. 105 is the fall foliage / backup locomotive for Lincoln. So basically the same as last year too. It'll be back up in Lincoln, and then they'll send it up to Meredith for the Winnipesaukee Scenic Local, so that 1590 can handle the foliage. But yeah, that's about it for 105. But again, maybe Mass Bay too. Like in the top left, it was in the last one, so who knows. But actually, it is probably 105. Yeah, anyway. 302, that's been the foliage northbound locomotive. They have some passenger cars that prevent them from running around, so they like to use another engine in contrast to a shove platform, since frankly it is safer, since there's better concentration, and you don't have to talk on the radio. That's what I'm trying to get. You don't have to talk on the radio 24/7, but yeah, there'd be 302 on that. But other than that, I can't really make any bets. So probably lead a couple of the locals, like as seen here, because 1590 is plagued with issues, unfortunately. Or not plagued with issues, but it's gonna break down a couple of times. It's just how it is. I mean, you never know, but if I were a betting man, I'd say 302 is going to step in at some point. And then 1921, this one's kind of interesting because it just came back last year, so yeah, top left. But yeah, it came back last year, and it took over for 1590 on the foliage, so the southbound trips. But I really don't know. I mean, I'm assuming they don't want to keep it in Lincoln because Jeeps shred the tracks there, since they're so heavy and they take such sharp turns on the Lincoln line, whereas in the Winnipesaukee line they don't have as many sharp turns, or not nearly as sharp of turns, so they run a lot better there. So, well, not run better, but they don't shred the tracks as much, that's what I mean. So yeah, there'll be 1921 there. I also have to imagine that they'll not want to keep the Minuteman livery. I don't know if they'll repaint it anytime soon, but there is no way they're not going to want to take that engine and repaint into the Granite State Scenic livery. It's just too on brand with the railroad. But, I mean, yeah, that's about it, really. So, Lincoln back up for when 105 leaves, or it'll go to Meredith and be a foliage locomotive. It's one of those two. We have to use this year to find out what it does, to get a better understanding of its job. And then there's 958. 958 is just the emergency locomotive. Well, in 1186, more on that later. It is very likely that it'll do at least 1 or 2 excursions, because that's just been the case ever since the railroad was bought out by Patriot. It's run every year since, for one reason or another. But yeah, they don't like using it a ton, but they will use it if they have to. Because with 2025, it took over for 1012 when that had a breakdown, and then they had 1590 come down. But yeah, I think it'll just be like an emergency locomotive. I think it'll probably stay in Lincoln because it has the easier brake stand, and Lincoln has some pretty intense grades. So yeah, I think that is probably the safe bet. And then 1186, same as 958, is an emergency locomotive, though probably for Winnipesaukee, because of the worse brake stand, and Winnipesaukie's grades are much less tame. Though ultimately what really decides is which one's easier to access. For instance, if 1186 is in front of 958 and easier to get to from the yard, then they'll use 1186, and vice versa. But ultimately, I think it'd be safe to bet on 1186 being preferred for the Winnipesaukee operation because of its inferior brake stand and inferior technology, because it's purely Alka, whereas 958 has an EMD in it. But yeah. And then last but not least, I believe, is, are we finally going to get resilience? I'm assuming we might. I mean, they have other projects, it sounds like, but I think they might finally get it done, because exterior-wise it's already complete. It's just the interior. But I think it is not insane to believe that we could finally get it up and running. I mean, we're not running, but in service. Again, I don't know. It was in similar condition in 2025, and it didn't end up returning, but it's not an insane bet. I'm going to keep betting it every year until it happens, so yeah. And then Conway Scenic. I wanted to actually give myself a bit of a challenge, because Conway Scenic is a lot more unpredictable than the Grand State Scenic, to be completely honest. They just throw everything at the wall, so you know what, let's just begin. 1751, Valley Train, and the occasional Mountaineer. That one's easy, because they like 1751 for the Valley, and then they have been starting to do 3 Mountaineers a day, so one consist will have 2 Jeep 38s, and then there'll be another smaller consist, which I think 1751 will take over for. It's the one they ran 216 on, but they just replaced 1751's trucks, and I have a sneaking suspicion they prefer it over 216 for some reason. I mean, I say that because I don't know, but they're using it a lot. They use 1751 a lot more than they use 216. That's all I know. So again, I don't know the specifics, but if I'm a betting man, I'd say 1751 will take over for 216's role on the notch trains, and then it'll. Okay, you know what? Moving on. 255. That's the main Mountaineer power. We'll see it on some Valley trains for sure, because they do like using this engine, but its main purpose is the Mountaineer. In the fall, it'll be paired with another engine, but typically it is going to run solo, because again, they really like it. It's more reliable than 252. I don't think it's more reliable than 216, but I mean, they use it more, so 573. 573 is the Fall Valley. It is. During the summer, it'll be back up for if 1751 has any issues, but during the fall, yeah, it's game on for this engine. It's going to be running all the time, because 1751, according to my prediction, will be on the foliage, the notch, and then it'll be the other engines for the other notch consist, and 573 will take over for the Valley. So yeah, well, especially since it doesn't have any dynamic brakes because that's one big thing. They need dynamic braking for the notch train for safety concerns. I mean, they can run trains without them, but they'd rather not. So, yeah, 573 on the Valley just makes most sense. And then there's 252, the other engine on the Fall Mountaineer that'll be paired with 255. I think you might see that there. That's 216. I don't know, but it's kind of like that. Yeah, 252. It will for certain be on some Mountaineers. Maybe some solo trips where it doesn't pair with 255. That's not a safe bet, but it did happen last year, and it has happened in years prior, so it's not unreasonable to assume it'll do it again, but yeah, I don't know. Also, it could do Valley trains. It, again, did that last year with 255, funny enough, but I don't know, because, oh yeah, in the winter, some of the track switches freeze up, so I think there'll be some extra usage of locomotives. Like if the Valley train were to freeze up, it'll be like 1751 and maybe 573 or 216. And more on that later, but yeah, I think it'll be weird. It'll be some other engine with 1751 the Valley, or it'll be like if you saw in the winter to the winter to Crawford excursion, you saw those 255 one way and 216 another. It's that sort of deal. So yeah, but hey, moving on. 216, the backup. Yeah, I think this is just going to be relegated to backup. Not much more to say there. It's if the Valley has issues and the notch train is doing all its stuff, maybe 216 will step in. Maybe it'll do the notch train instead of 1751. I really don't know. But just I don't see this engine running too much, at least compared to the other engines on the railroad. It is definitely more of a specialty to see it running. It will definitely run, but not as much as its siblings, like the other Yellowbirds and whatnot. Again, as mentioned earlier, it could be slapped on the Valley train for the winter excursions if the switch is frozen over, or the winter to Crawford stuff, because for those who don't know, 1751 and 255 have a hot start feature, but 216 you can actually plug something into it and that'll assist with it starting up. So yeah, it'll be 216 as primary backup for the winter months, because they can just do that. But yeah, I don't. Okay, I'm just gonna move on. 1741, that'll be the Fall Valley backup / it'll be kind of a test. It's kind of in a testing phase during this time of year. Like if you see in the bottom right, it's on a Mountaineer in preparation for the 470 trip, but it could do some. Oh yeah, 470 right on the top right there. But it could do some Valley trains just to stretch its legs as well. It's definitely going to be backup for the Valley. Blech, Jesus Christ. If all the engines on Conway are working, then it'll be secondary, but if one's broken down, then it's primary backup. That's just how it is for the fall going forward, because they're just going nuts. Which is cool, but also it can be questionable, because the 1741 isn't their locomotive, it's the 470s, and I don't know their whole arrangement, but I'm sure they're not going to be like going out of their way to use someone else's locomotive unless they get permission to from 470 Club, so the owners of the engine. So yeah, speaking of the 470 Club, the F units, their signature engines, again, that'll be backup to 1741, and it'll do some occasional Valley trains to stretch its legs, maybe a Mountaineer. It hasn't done that before, I don't believe. No, it's done Mountaineers. I don't think it's used the Mountaineer to stretch its legs like 1741 has, but yeah, it'll definitely be testing here and there, and then we'll do the 470 trip, like you can see in the bottom left and bottom right. Or maybe top left too, but it does all the specials. That's what they do. They do the specials, so they'll be doing those, and just that's basically all the note with the F units. Steam, forget it. I don't think they're going to be returning anytime soon, sadly. Not 501, not 7470. It's just, there's always talk that they're going to bring them back soon, and it never happens. So it's not a good bet to say that it'll be back next year. I could be wrong, but I'm not willing to take my chances. And then, so we did all the prediction stuff, and now I want to say I want to see the New Hampshire North Coast at some point. Also, Mass Central. I didn't upload any photos of that because this was a more recent decision, but I decided I wanted to check out Mass Central at some point, which would be pretty cool. I think in Palmer, Mass, there's a lot of action there in the morning with Mass Central, New England Central, and CSX. So I'll definitely try to get some stuff about that. It'll be absolute pain because I have to wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning to get the prime action, but you do what you gotta do. Anyway, that's it for this year. Let's see what happens. Let's see what doesn't. See ya.